With the dream of being a university professor, he traveled the world for 2 years to obtain the U.S. visa. Rejected over 10 times, he ended up in Montreal, and that's where his life took a different turn, at least for a short time. My guest this week is Dr. Mohammad Ouscourchi, who lives in San Diego, California, and is the Associate Dean of College of Business at California State University, San Marcos. Talking about power of determination and a true immigrant success story, right? So go ahead, grab your cup of tea, and join me in this episode of Empowering Conversations. Hello and welcome to the Empowering Conversations podcast, a place to get inspired, challenged, and empowered by stories of immigrants who build their success from zero. I'm your host, Mehran.
I was born in a family with highly educated siblings. It's funny because my parents did not have formal education. Actually, neither of them went to school. They could read and write, but their education stopped there. But my siblings and all my in-laws have higher education all the way to PhD. So it was sort of my destiny, if you will. From the beginning, I knew that I would be going to the university and getting a PhD. And as a matter of fact, every little kid has a dream. My dream was to be a university professor. And I was very good in math. In high school, all my good grades were in mathematics. On the other hand, history, geography, English, I had my worst grades. After graduating from high school, I ended up going to Shiraz University and majored in math. For my master's degree, I went to Sharif University of Technology, which is one of the better universities in Iran. And if I may brag about myself here, I ranked first in the concours, in the entrance examination. And because of that, in a way, I was feeling a sort of a burden on my shoulder to continue being on the top in everything I do. So during my master's, I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do next? At that time, the government sent students with scholarship outside the country, but students doing it themselves was not that popular. I remember there was a professor from Rutgers University. He came to the university for a seminar. I gave a talk in that seminar and he liked it. Then we ended up talking and he invited me to join his PhD team. I applied, he sent me I-20 with full scholarship. I got that I-20 and I was so certain because again, it wasn't popular. So I didn't know anybody else with scholarship and I-20 to ask what's next. So I thought that this is, my ticket to the States. So I remember I bought a one-way ticket from Tehran to Dubai. My plan was to get the visa and then from Dubai to New York. So I went to Dubai and I applied for the US visa and I was rejected. It was so shocking that I couldn't believe that. How do you reject somebody that you invited yourself and provided scholarship? From that point, I traveled to many countries, actually, 6, 7 countries. And I applied more than 10 times for US visa. And every time I got rejected. Some places I went back again and again, and I got rejected.
What year was this?
95. So for 2 years, I traveled all over the world, from countries around Iran to Europe. Every time I was rejected, until I found myself in Canada, in Montreal. Again, I went there not to stay because I was so determined to go to Rutgers. I pictured myself as a member of that team, and that was my goal to reach, and I couldn't think of anything else. A lot of other opportunities came up for me. I rejected all of these opportunities. So anyways, long story short, I went to Montreal, and again I was rejected. And that time, counselor who was talking to me, she said, look, let me save you some time. It looks like, because my passport was full of, rejection stamps. He said, it looks like you've been traveling all over the world, possibly spending a lot of money, your time for 2 years. There is no way that you ever get to the US. I said, why? He said, well, because you lied. I said, when did I lie? He said, you went to Dubai and you applied twice. You got rejected. Next, you went to Belgium. This application, she actually brought up the application on her screen and showed me. She said, this application here asks you to indicate whether you have applied before or not. And you said no. And that's on your file. There's no way that you get visa. So that was the point that I realized, okay, I'm not going to get there. So I started looking for other opportunities. I went to McGill. I had never heard of that university. Later, I found that it's one of the best universities. And I found somebody whose research was somewhat closer to what I was interested in. And I told him my story. And he said, if half of what you say is true, you have the determination that I need as a PhD student. And he said he will match the scholarship and the admission. And he said, why don't you stay here and work with me? He even waived TOEFL and GMAT and GRE, everything that I was supposed to take between me and Rutgers was agreed that I would go there and take these exams. They just didn't put it in there as conditional to make sure that I get visa. So he waived everything. I switched my major in a way because I was in math. He happened to be in a business school. I stayed there and it turned out to be actually a very good place for me. So, and then after I graduated, I decided to come to the States. Since 2002, I've been living here. I came here as assistant professor in the College of Business Administration at Cal State San Marcos. And then I moved up to associate and then full professor. And then since 2013, I have been in administration position. I'm associate dean of the college now and chief of graduate programs. And it's been about 7 years that I'm doing this.
Wow, what an interesting story. I mean, 10 times being rejected, and then you had full scholarship in Rutgers University, but then you ended up in McGill with even a better opportunity. I'm curious now, why business? I mean, were you happy that you switched major? Because switching major, that's something many people do, but it's not easy, right?
That wasn't my plan. My plan was to get to Rutgers, and actually Rutgers had a research center called RutCore that was the center of operations research in the world. So my plan was to get there and do what I did in the past, optimization. I had to switch because the professor that I found happened to be in the College of Business. My discipline is sort of interdisciplinary at the research level. It's practiced in math departments, business, computer science, different departments. But each subject, each discipline takes it from a different angle. So in business, it's very highly practical. And yes, switching the major was one of the most difficult challenges that I had in my life, along with cultural differences. That I went to Montreal when I was 25. I had never lived outside Iran except for a couple of months in Belgium. That I was still there mostly for the US visa, but I sort of started, decided not to continue. I didn't even travel back to Iran for 5 years.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't have time or the money. I just didn't want to. I wanted to stay there and learn that culture and learn that language and prepare myself because I was so far behind everybody else in my class. Just imagine that you go to PhD course and you don't know even the basics of business. I mean, if they were talking about marketing, management, accounting, finance, I had no clue. I was competing with people who have been doing this for at least 6 years before they get there. I had no problem doing research because my research was still very highly mathematical, but I had to do the coursework. I had to do the comprehensive exam, the qualifying exam, and all of these things that were based on these subjects.
So that was a changing major, cultural shock, which is, of course, something that many immigrants go through. What else?
I think those two plus language, because my English was very poor too. But when I went to speak, the professor who later became my advisor, he said a lot of things. I only picked up a few, sentences from what he said. I remember I asked him a question, and he said, "I've been talking about that for the past 30 minutes." I remember that I had to take a course because McGill was part of a joint program. Montreal is a bilingual city. The province of Quebec is a French province. Four universities in Montreal, all universities are part of a program called Joint Program. And if you are a PhD student in one of them, you have to take courses from other schools. So they sort of made me take a course called Pensée, which means philosophy in French, at one of the French schools. Philosophy, as a math major, was very hard to understand for me, even in Farsi. Just imagine that I had to learn that in French. And I had no clue about French. I still don't.
Not in English, in French.
Not even in English. So putting all of these together, it was a very big challenge for me.
No doubt that living in another country, studying in another language, communicating with others when you don't know the culture or English is not your native language is hard. But don't let the obstacles limit you or your growth. Change your mind. Think of the hurdles in a new way. I once heard a quote, and I think of it often. Obstacles are put in your way to see if what you want is really worth fighting for. So think about it. If it's worth it, fight for it. But also see what Dr. Oskourouchi suggests for you to do.
With all the experiences that you have had along the 20-some years that you've been here, what advice you wish you could give to your 25-year-old version of yourself? What would be some tips that you would share with him now that you think would have made his life much easier?
Lower your expectation. I think expectation is something that makes the journey very difficult. If you lower your expectation, if you realize really that nobody's coming, it's you, then it makes things easier. Obviously, work hard, stay positive, be optimistic, and have the end in mind. That's actually what I always did myself. I always had a goal in mind. And to reach that goal, I tried all different ways to get there. If I got to a dead end, I tried a different way.
So did you have associate dean of a business school in mind?
My dream was to be a university professor, and I became a university professor. After that, it's all about your professional development, how you want to move up from there. So again, another goal comes in, right? Once you reach your goal, then you don't stop there. You set another goal for yourself, and dean maybe is the next step.
Were there instances that you gave up? Because you said you're someone that is focused, you always have the end in mind. Were there instances that, you got to it and you said, no, this is not what I want, or this is difficult, I'm not going to be able to do it?
I have given up on the path, on my direction, but I'm a very determined person. If I set my mind to something, I will get it. It may take me longer than what I expected, but I don't give up on things that I consider as essential and my goals. I don't.
What sacrifices you have made along the way for where you are today?
I'm a family man. I like to spend time with my family. And being away 5 years without even going back once was something that I chose to do because I didn't want to go back to the old times and remember what it was like to be with your friends and your family and so forth. So I decided to take that out of my journey and stay focused. I mean, there's a lot of other things, but that's the major one, the most important one. That we still miss. A lot of immigrants still, of course, we form our own family here because when I moved to Canada, I wasn't married, so I had it easy, of course, if you will, because if you're married, if you have children, I understand that it's much harder to go through this journey. But then I formed my own family, and now I have a family here where I like to live.
What do you think is the essential mindset that makes you who you are?
The work ethics is a key to success. I wake up in the morning every day and I can't wait to get to work because I love what I do. And at 5 o'clock, I can't wait to get home because I love my family. Um, Confidence, I'm a very confident person. My wife always makes fun of me. Pioneering, I like to try new things. I'm a risk taker. Persuasiveness, that's another skill. And maybe one of the new skills that I learned is to learn from failures. I have a canvas on the wall in my office, and there is a short statement on it. It says, crisis can be catalyst for creativity. And I learned that in my new role, not new anymore, in my role as associate dean, that when something goes wrong, yes, you have to fix it, but you can also learn from it. And that's what I call falling up. If you are falling, don't call it you fall down. You fall, but you get up and you move up. You become even a better person. Look at the pandemic situation, crisis that we have now. Everybody's concerned, everybody's worried, and they should be. The priority is citizens' safety and health. But at the same time, I think businesses can use that, or everybody can use that as a learning tool. If we can survive a situation like this, then how can we improve our operation in the future to do things efficiently, more efficiently, better, faster, cheaper?
Not knowing the language or trying to improve language regular basis. I know confidence is something that many immigrants suffer from. Basically, lack of confidence is something that many immigrants suffer from. How do you think you were able to be confident? What were some of the tips that you can share with our audience today about being more confident?
You should never be afraid of admitting that you were wrong. I think that gives you confidence. I make a lot of mistakes. Every day I make lots of mistakes. But I'm never ashamed of apologizing. I do it even publicly. I've sent emails to the entire university and apologized for something that I said in the Senate meeting, for example. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it gave me a sense of confidence that, yes, I try to be right. I try to do the right thing. But if I made a mistake, it's not the end of the world. I should humbly apologize. If you don't have that sense, if you think that you cannot make mistake, you should not make mistake, then you lose your confidence.
So basically putting the pressure on yourself to be right all the time, you're going to lose that confidence. So you think that, that's what gave you always that confidence to be able to accept the problem or accept the mistake and admit to it when necessary. Well, of course, try your best to limit that. But when it happens, learn from it and apologize if necessary.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. So,
and which again goes back to what you said, you're a big risk taker, right? I mean, when you allow yourself to accept the failure, you allow yourself to risk, which can increase your confidence. What is your dream?
I'm living it.
You're living it. That's beautiful. Really?
I don't expect much from life. Of course, I have dreams for my children and their future. But, the life that I have now is pretty much what I was hoping for. I can go on and on about the dream for humanity and the world and so forth, but that's, I don't think that's what you're asking.
Well, if that's what you want to share, feel free. But it's beautiful what you said, that you're living your dream. And that goes back to what you said earlier. You get up and you enjoy going to work. And at 5 o'clock, you're counting down to get home and to be with your family. What is your favorite book?
I read a lot, but some of them gave me insight and direction. The most important one in my professional development is a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. I read that book a couple of times, and that I think it's a must-read book, because there you learn that success is not a goal. Success will follow happiness. If you are happy, you will succeed. If you try to succeed and sacrifice everything to get there, you may not get there, or even if you do, you may live a miserable life. And there are techniques to be happy. For example, I write every day. At the end of the day, I write 3 good things that happened that day. And that's actually, it works very well for me. It could be something as, simple as a scent of a flower that you smell between 2 meetings that you're walking, or kid gives you a kiss and a hug. I mean, small things. But if you, at the end of the day, if you sit down and reflect back and enjoy those things, it actually works. It's scientific. It's been researched on that. People who took this approach, they became happier after as short as a week.
For the scientists in the audience, Dr. Uskurci is referring to researches done by Dr. Martin Seligman, father of positive psychology. If you haven't read his Authentic Happiness or Flourish, I highly recommend. Right now, more than ever before, you have time and easy access to books. Seize the opportunity. Buy a book, get a new perspective, and learn to be happy.
Now I'm going to ask you a culture question. All of the guests that I have, they come from different cultures, different values. Was there something that you had to unlearn to be where you are today?
A lot.
Can you share with our audience some of the things that you had to unlearn?
I used to be controlling, opinionated, and egotistical, if you will. I still am, but in a milder way. So I moved to be assertive, confident, and positive. That certainly I learned at the job. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but being controlling, opinionated, and egotistical is cultural. I love my culture. I'm proud of it, but there's a lot of flaws in it that did not help.
Let's say I'm an immigrant. I came, and there are certain things that I've learned in my home country, and I am looking to develop myself. What advice would you give me career-wise? Let's keep career-wise first.
Okay, so I want to use a quote from Archimedes, the greatest mathematician and scientist of ancient Greece. He famously said that, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." In this metaphor, the fulcrum is your mind. That should be set right. If you set it at the right place, then you can do anything. Think of a seesaw, right? When 2 kids are on both sides and they have the same weight, they can play all day long. But if one of the kids is heavier than the other, it doesn't work quite that way. However, if you move the fulcrum closer to the heavier kid, then you regain the balance. The fulcrum to me is your mind that should be set in the right place. And the lever in this example is the power of your potentials. So if you enhance your potentials and you set your mind right, you can do anything. In my opinion, you don't need any support from anybody. It's all on you.
And how do you enhance them? Would you say that we go back to school and enhance it, or take certain courses? Because a lot of immigrants, either once they come here, they have their certificates or they have done certain amount of education.
Mm-hmm.
Would you suggest someone to reinvest in that education and start over, or further enhance it?
Yeah, pragmatically, yes, you have to start somewhere. And if going back to school and getting another degree here is feasible, then I certainly suggest that. I just spoke with somebody who recently came from Iran with 2 degrees, one in civil engineering, one in hospitality. Well, his second degree was from UK. And that's what I recommended. I said, if you want to expedite your growth, you should get a degree here, if possible. If not possible, then starting a job that is feasible for you, regardless of your degree, regardless of what you did in the past, start from scratch, if you will, and then move up from there. We can't come here and expect to be treated the same way we did back home. It's a different world, it's a different culture, it's a different environment. We have to start from the scratch. Those of us who came early on, they had an easier time. Yes, we had difficulties, we had a lot of challenges. But if I were to migrate today, I wouldn't be where I am now because it gets harder and harder. But unfortunately, that's the case. You have to either go back to school or start from the scratch.
Mm-hmm. You have an MBA program. Can you tell us a little bit, how would someone know that an MBA program is right for them?
Well, MBA is not a technical degree. So I recommend that to people who have a technical degree in their undergraduate program, whether engineering or science or whatever subject they did their undergraduate, and have work experience in that field and want to enhance their skills with management skills or business education. Then they come to us and we help them connect their expertise with business education. And then they can apply it in a different level, in a management level. In my opinion, it's good for those who have a degree outside business. Although about 40% of our students have business degrees, but these are people who have a business degree, they went to work for 10, 15, 20 years and then come back to get an MBA. It's a refresher for them, and also it puts them in a different level.
So if the audience wants to connect with you and learn more about your MBA program, how can they do that?
They can send me an email. Email is the best way to connect with me. M for Mohammed, Oskourouchi, my last name, OSKOOROUCHI, moskourouchi@gmail.com.
I will make sure that I will put that on the show notes to make that easier. Now, was this something that you wish you wanted to share with our audience today? And I haven't provided that opportunity for you yet.
Because I'm in education, I'd like to share with those of your audience who have children and are thinking about their future. We are in a unique time of history of humankind, in my opinion. We have never been in this position that we don't know what to teach our children because we don't know how the world will look like 15 years from now. The pace of technologies is so fast that we have never experienced this before. Automation and artificial intelligence are taking over a lot of jobs. So we have to be careful in terms of what path we put our children on. The problem is that unfortunately we don't know. We don't know what is important, and it's a challenge that we have every day in the college. What do we do? What is it important that we should teach children? Not that I have any answer for this. If I were to guess today, I would say that fields such as analytics, biology, computing are going to be safe. Most importantly, we need to develop skills in our children to be able to reinvent themselves every now and then. Because if they are used to doing something as a job and making money, and if it doesn't exist anymore, they have to be able to reinvent themselves quickly and find something else. This may not seem realistic today, but it will be in the future. And those of us who have small children, they will be in the job market 20 years from now. Things are going to be different. We have to work with them to make sure that at least they have an understanding that how the environment is changing and how we should respond to these changes.
So basically teaching them flexibility and adaptability.
Yes.
And maybe something along the line of being able to fail and learn from failure, something that you've mentioned earlier. I mean, again, I'm assuming, but please correct me.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. These are the skills that are going to be more important than math and sciences.
I see.
In the future. Soft skills, in a way.
Soft skills.
You're right.
Yeah. I really enjoyed our conversation today and certainly learned a lot from you. And
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure to talk with you today. And again, thank you for your time.
No doubt that Dr. Oskouchi's story was inspirational. His determination was exemplary, and his way of looking at happiness was something many of us dream about. I personally know him, a kind-hearted, honest immigrant. If you have questions that you wish I'd ask him, send me an email. Send him an email. Ask your question. Seek advice. Learn from others by subscribing to this channel and connecting with them, but don't give up. Fall up. Even with all the hurdles we're facing now, there will be a bright future for you and I, for all of us. This is an opportunity to learn and reflect. So stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned for another episode of Empowering Conversations.